we've lived here 4 years. We moved in at the beginning part of May 4 years ago. We had always talked about moving downtown, and it was just kind of the opportunity presented itself. It's like, oh, you know what? Let's check it out. And they showed us 2 apartments. There was a two-bedroom apartment, and then this one, the 3-bedroom apartment. And we loved both of them, but the opportunity to own like a corner penthouse, you know, you couldn't pass it up. And the view is incredible.
When we even first moved in here, we were in the elevator, and one gentleman, he was coming at the same floor, and he said, "Welcome to the Hillcrest." He saw where fun things happen.
It started out, it was really weird. When we first moved in, it's really quiet in this apartment. For about 2 months straight after moving in, I would wake up at 12:10 exactly every night, and I would hear somebody screaming down the hallway. And after the first couple of nights, I'm like, you know, what is going on? So I would get up and I'd walk to the door and look out the peephole, didn't see anything, and then I would, the one night I had just had it, and I opened up the door, I'm like, I was gonna yell at whoever was out there, and there was nobody there. But it was so weird that it was 12:10 every night. One night I couldn't sleep, and it was after hearing that out there. I was sitting here on the sofa, just watching the TV, and I watched a shadow figure appear on the corner, and it was almost as if he was hugging the wall. I couldn't find my phone fast enough in order to get it, so I was, you know, reaching around trying to find my phone, and of course I looked down to grab it and it was gone. But it was really, really, like, and I told my wife the next day, and she's like, "Are you serious?" And I'm like, "Yeah." It was really, really bizarre, seeing just like a figure, and there was no mistaking what that was. I was always kind of a skeptic. We'd watched all the different Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters, all those different shows, and you know, I'd seen it and I'd go, "Oh, come on, there's, you know, that's crazy." But I had went to the Mansfield State Reformatory and did the ghost hunt at night, and that really opened my eyes, because we had seen and heard things and gotten EVPs all night long. That really kind of opened my eyes to like the supernatural, and being that in that close proximity of it. We had several of our friends experienced things, and they looked at us like, "Hey, you weren't kidding. This is really what had happened." And I think the thing with what we've seen and what we've experienced is, it's not malicious, it's not like angry, but it makes it known that it's there. And you know, I think it was probably a week or two after we had moved in and we had experienced several things, I had finally said, "You know what, look, I know you're here, we can coexist in this same space, so let's try to figure out a way to like get along." And we've never had any issues. It's just they let us know that they're there and that we see it. I know the building was built in 1929. It was built on a burial ground or a cemetery, and it's like, I don't know if I believe any of that. I mean, but who am I? Some of the few things that you can find are Amelia Earhart had stayed here, and apparently she had painted an arrow pointing towards Toledo Express on the roof of the building.
Especially with the whole cemetery thing, oh, there's got to be something, yeah. Because, I mean, from what they say, there's still like bodies here that were never actually claimed. My husband and I were having a conversation one night, and I was sitting this way on the sofa facing this window, and the curtains were open, and I seen somebody walk past the window. And I had stopped the conversation and said, "Somebody just walked past the window." And he says, "We live on the 9th floor." And I said, "I'm very aware of that, but somebody just walked past the window." This one right here. I seen something walk past the window. So I know that I wasn't tripping. It was just something that I seen. I mean, it's one of the things I've seen. It was more like a full body figure, like a black figure, but it was almost like a full body figure that just walked by.
I think the scariest one was my wife and I were going to take our dog out for to go to the bathroom, and this circular black shadow had come from behind us and turned the corner. The dog looked back at us. He's like, "Did you see that?" We stopped in our tracks and were like, let's go to the elevator, let's get the dog out and get back in and just like not deal with it. This hallway's not bad, but you go down this next one, it looks like The Shining. And that same instance, when we were coming back in, you need a key fob in order to get into the building. The residents have key fobs. And we scanned and it wasn't working. And it's never happened before or since. The door shook like somebody was on the other end just shaking furiously at the door. And again, my wife and I and the dog, we looked at each other and said, well, let's try a different door. And we just walked around to the side of the building and came in from that direction, because that was really terrifying.
One morning I went into the bathroom and the towels were hanging, and there was two hanging. One of them was doing this back and forth. And I just looked over and said, it is too early for this. Let's not do this. And it instantly stopped. It just dead stopped. I do remember my phone in the bathroom. I had set it on the counter, and it was actually on top of his like shaving kit case, and it was right on in the center of it. And then all of a sudden it like flipped onto the floor. It's almost like it just did a back dive off of the counter.
So yeah, there's the old mail chute. Some people have put their things in there and realized like, oh, this doesn't go anywhere. And there's a birthday card in there with probably $10. Well, the other day, our cat was walking from the front door area into the living room, and my wife had her vacuum there, and the vacuum just kind of fell right over on the cat, and the cat jumped back and was looking down the hallway like somebody was standing there. So the cats do see things. The ghosts that like hang out in our apartment are just like, hey, nice to see you. Like we have roommates that don't take up space.
Yeah, you don't pay bills either.
This is called the Aztec death whistle. They're not 100% sure what it's for, if it was for burial rituals or if they carried these into war blowing them, because if I heard hundreds of these being blown coming at me and they were my enemy, I'd probably be terrified. I'd probably back down. When you blow on this, it sounds like a woman screaming bloody murder. It'll make your hair stand on end. Don't get mad at me for touching you. This is Clarabelle. She, I believe, has a spirit attached to her by the name of Clarabelle Smith. And we were able to trace Clarabelle Smith to a woman who lived in Canada and eventually married and moved to Michigan. This was found in the old Storm and Norman's on Alexis. A friend of mine who was living with me kept having dreams about her. So we went up there and found her, exactly what she dreamed. This is one of the ones where the eyes open when you tilt it up. Well, when we picked it up at the antique store and I held it, and I was like, well, they're supposed to open, I guess they don't. And right when I said that, they went at the same time. So we took her, brought her home. Her face has changed over time. I'm not talking about like the crack or nothing, like it actually looks fatter now than it did when we first got it. She does not like to be touched or have her clothes move around, so I don't really bring her out very often. She's actually protected me from the one time I did think something followed me home. I'm not sure if it did. Strange things were happening, and I went and sat in the room with her, and she fell off the wall. And whatever happened went out this door. We heard the door like it slammed, even though it never opened. So it sounded like something went through my door. Like it got the heck out of here when she fell off the wall. I'm a paranormal investigator. I've been investigating different locations, private residences, businesses, and such for over 20 years now, but it's pretty much been a part of my life my whole life. Oftentimes it's attracted to me more than I am to it. It seems to follow me wherever I go. I wouldn't be doing this stuff right now if it wasn't for growing up on LaGrange Street. That was my very first encounter with anything strange or paranormal. I was about 2 to 3 years old, used to wake up every night, grab my blanket and pillow, and go sleep on my mom and dad's floor. Until one night, I reached for my blanket and pillow and I looked up into my window. Now we're on the second floor of a duplex, and I see this creature in the window. And it was 2 panes, bottom and top. It was sitting only in the top frame, and it was almost like from the waist up. It had no legs. It looked like reverse television static. It was all black, but it had these gray specks that would appear out throughout its body, and it moved very fluid-like. It had a hole for a mouth and a hole for eyes. I could see through it. I could see the neighbor's roof. I don't recall it making a sound, but as I was thinking about this recently, I started vaguely remembering kind of groaning, guttural sounds, but it feels like a very faint memory. I was frozen in place. I couldn't scream. I was locked on it. I could not move. I wanted to scream so bad. I remember how badly I wanted to scream, but nothing would come out. I couldn't move. And that was the last thing I remembered. I woke up under my bed, completely flat, arms at my side, just staring at the bottom of my mattress. Ever since that happened on LaGrange, that is the only building left standing on that side of the block. Everything else has been torn down since then. There was a catering service there, and there was a funeral home right next to the catering service. In the LaGrange Street area, lots of people have stories from that area. Lots. If I talk to someone who grew up there, almost everyone has some sort of paranormal story. So I believe that area is a hotspot for paranormal activity, and I know from experience. My grandfather had stories, my mom had stories. They never shied me away from it. They embraced the experiences I had, and it was just kind of something our whole family has experienced over the years. My mom, that's her original Ouija board there from the 70s, and I've just been collecting them ever since. This isn't even half of them. I can't display all of them, I have too many. But I do collect Ouija boards from all different eras, styles. In fact, this one here was made for me for helping out on a paranormal project. I don't believe in them, as people tend to think they're an evil object. I just believe it's a board with letters. I believe most of the legend and lore behind them stems from Hollywood. These things weren't considered evil until The Exorcist premiered. Before that, they were just normal objects used to communicate with the other side. This is a death mask. My father collects like military stuff, and one of his friends that had some artifacts for my dad had this. And my dad didn't want anything to do with it, and when he told me about it, I got in contact with the guy and bought it off of him. He said it hung in some family's house for years on the wall, and he didn't have any information on it either. But this was cast on this woman's face after she passed, because back then we didn't have photography, so they would cast plaster masks of people that they could not identify and show their mask in the funeral windows, in the funeral home window, and if anybody would recognize them, they could come in and claim the body. You can see the lines of cotton where they put the cotton balls in her nose to keep the plaster from going up there. Like every wrinkle of her face, every pore is in that. And this door slams while we're all downstairs setting up equipment, and not just lightly. And we all heard it. We jumped. We're like, what was that? That was with some force. See the shadow right before it, and then slam.
Okay with Jeremiah living here and doing renovations to the place?
We were in Prospect Place Estate in Trinway, Ohio, which is a mansion that was part of the Underground Railroad, and something grabbed me by the ankle and yanked me one time really hard.
What the? Someone pulled
Very emotional thing. A lot of us were near tears because it terrified us so bad. 90% of the time, it's boring. You're sitting in a room, talking to the air, hoping something happens, and most of the time, nothing happens. It's quiet. You might hear a little sound here or there, but you can debunk it. It's that rare moment where something major like that happens, where the perfect energy aligns, everything just lines up, and something big happens that we do this for. We sit through all those boring nights just for moments like that. That's what we believe to be the nun that's seen in the balcony. It doesn't look like she walks, it looks like she glides by. That's our favorite place. We consider that the most haunted place in Toledo, the most haunted public space. There were a lot of cases where the families ended up moving with the things we found. I can think of one on Manhattan. We heard disembodied voices as we walked through, especially one right in front of my face in the backyard in a field with nothing around. I hear a man go, "What you doing here, boy?" The woman told me there was a demon attached to it that was from the lower keys of Solomon. And it was actually, we looked into it, it was a demon that wasn't exactly evil. It wanted back into heaven and was trying to do good things to get back into heaven, but sometimes had to do bad things because of what it was ordered to do, and it's hell's army. So we took the symbol from the Keys of Solomon and sealed it within that paper, as my friend did a ritual to bind it to this box, if it is that. It hasn't done anything since it's been here. I'll show you the signature on it, but I do not touch it with my bare hands, just in case. So, this is the box. These are coffin nails that were cut in half and put here. You can see the wax from when it was on display. This is wax from one of the other ones that was above it. And on the back, it's signed by the artist. And this is how I was able to trace down its origins. It was from 1984 in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Ironically, I was also born in 1984, and she said this thing had been seeking me out personally. There was no mention of anything demonic or anything like that. It wasn't until it was in the mail on its way to me that she started talking about it being demonic, and that the stone that is on top of it has to stay with it at all times. I cannot separate it from it because bad things will happen. She also told me where she got the stone. She said this creature came to her. It was completely black and shiny. It had no facial features. It in a case with lots of protection. There's a little shelf under it, and under that shelf, that is all sage. And next to that are a couple blocks of Palo Santo wood, and on top we have 3 crosses and a St. Michael's pendant. I do feel that every person is sensitive to it in some way, especially as a child. We're very close to the other side after we're born, so I believe that they still have that connection. That's why so many children have imaginary friends that we can't see, but they have full conversations and play dates with. They're still able to see people from that side. I'm sure whoever lives there now is definitely experiencing things. How we promoted ourselves was understanding reached with helping hands. We like to go to people's houses, especially if children were involved, because it's more terrifying when children are involved, especially since these things tend to like to target the children more because they're more vulnerable and closer to being able to see that stuff. So we did a lot of residentials and helped a lot of families out. We did house blessings, we did sagings, and there were a lot of cases where the families ended up moving with the things we found.
We bought this the 31st of July. It was built in 1897. It became a funeral home in the Depression era. We've always been looking for a second location for our funeral museum, and then with the opportunity to also live here, it was a perfect fit. It's going to be a funeral museum, an Airbnb, tattoo studio, And then we do paranormal investigations. People don't realize this as being an apartment. Also, there was 9 people that died here that weren't funerals. 2 women drank poison upstairs. 1 person hung themselves. We had the funeral director that started the business, had 2 children die here. A Civil War soldier died in an apartment upstairs. The room we're standing in was a viewing room. How the casket is in front of the fireplace. But a lot of the stuff that you see in here came in here. All the chairs, furniture, most of the stuff was left. My business partner, he's gonna be cremated in this casket when he dies. So this was the original part of the building. That used to be the front door. This casket was left here. The ones on the ledge, they have people in them. They were unclaimed. They were being thrown away. I just didn't feel it was right for somebody just to be thrown in the garbage. So those are cabinet cards from the Victorian era. How you have prayer cards today, that was basically your prayer card back in the early 1900s. Those were the original couches that they left. This is an ice casket. This was used to transport people in the Civil War era. Actually, a Civil War soldier was returned to Michigan in this coffin. So you would put ice in here, you close it, and then you could obviously lift this up and you could still see who was in it with the so that was a ice transport coffin back in the Civil War time. And then this was a crib for a baby from back in the 20s. That is a child's corpse suit, a burial suit from the 1920s, so it would be used for a child. So this is the biggest chapel. This was the one they were probably using the most. Same thing there with the backdrop curtain. For our paranormals, we were in this room and they were doing something they caught the word lamb on an EVP, and nobody knew what it meant. There's lambs on this wallpaper. But now, if you were going to purchase a casket, you would come over here. So this is the urn display room. This is the vault samples. Come through here. That's the original sign that was in the basement. This was the cooler for the bodies. It still works. Still was used this year. It's either going to be an ice cream parlor or an Edgar Allan Poe reading room. Hey, it's already cold. Break room for the families when they could come have, refreshments, drinks, food. Behind door number 1, casket elevator to the basement. Before, this was the back of the building, so they would bring people in here, take them down to the basement, and that's where the prep room was. Prep room with body lift. So what's in the machine is just water and food coloring, but the bottles that are on the counter there is real embalming fluid. This whole hose thing was on the table last week when we were doing a podcast with one of our friends, and somehow this got turned on and there was only 3 people here and we were in the big chapel. This room was used up until this year in July. Well, if you go to a funeral director and say, hey, you got any tools, they're gonna take you to the garage. They're instruments. They get really funny about that. So we're gonna go to the basement. With the slabs, this was used as a morgue. So they would lay bodies on top of this slab. So this was the original prep room. So the gravity jars we actually purchased from him about 3 years ago, they were in this room, and now they're back in this room. Autopsy scale. When they were redoing or building the University of Toledo Medical Center, they had no place to do autopsies. They did autopsies here. So if you go from 1920, 20s to 40s, and then on autopsies, you're probably 50, 60,000 that came through here. From what I've been told, where that brick is different there, that was a tunnel that led to the church under the street before it was paved. They would take the bodies across under the street, and when the people came to the church, the body was already there. But they had a funeral here, and the church was there when they were wheeling the casket across the street. When they closed the street, the funeral director had a button in his pocket. He'd hit the button, and the bells would go off in the church. I think it's just more of you're disturbing their, place that they're residing now. So you're an outsider or a stranger, so they don't know you. Now, I've heard some tapping and knocking here when I was here by myself the other day when the plumber was here, but I walk around here at night with the lights off, and I don't think people should fear the dead. Most of them are just, I think they're lost.